Welcome to Halacha in a Year, where we can get to learn all the most relevant halacha through the prism of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. You are listening to Rabbi Ya'akov Trump. This year is kindly sponsored by the Moshe Group and CA in zechus of Biלה bas נחמה Shifra and in honor of Rabbi Trump. Today we're going to be learning the laws of Krias HaTorah, of reading of the Torah. This is the first time in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch that he admits in his title that it's only a summary. It's called Ksat, the sum of the laws of reading of the Torah, because there are so many of them, it's not possible to put them all into one chapter. But nonetheless, we're going to look at some of those laws. Because it is long, even though it's some of them, we're going to break it down into two pieces. So we're going to look at 3 concepts today and the next bunch of concepts tomorrow. In part 1, we're going to look at the concepts of taking the Torah out, getting an aliyah, and who gets the aliyah when. In the second part, which we'll Be'ezrat Hashem do in the coming session, we're going to talk about limitations, who can get called, the parameters of the aliyah, mistakes, and the returning of the Torah. Let's jump into our 3 concepts today. So first, a little bit of background. The Torah is read on Shabbos, Yom Tov, Rosh Chodesh, Shabbos afternoons, and a Monday and a Thursday. The Gemara Baba Kama tells us that there were a number of takonos, of institutions into our ritual experience, which were instituted at the time of the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash by Ezra. One of them was that we read the Torah at Shabbos Mincha, and the other one is that we read on a Monday and a Thursday. The Gemara questions this proposition because, in the end of the day, we know that Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who established the laning on Monday and a Thursday, reading from the Torah on a Monday and a Thursday. The reason is because after leaving Krias Yamsov, it describes how the nation were starting to complain about water, and so they learned from here that because it takes 3 days the amount of time a human being can exist without water, so they know, in metaphorically speaking, of course, Torah refers to the life source, which is like water. So we can't have 3 days without learning of Torah. So instituted into our ritual, into our practice, it's baked into the template of our experience, is to Krias HaTorah every 3 days. So of a 7-day week, it's going to be on Shabbos, Monday, Thursday, so there's no 3 days without it. Let's look at a little bit of some of the halachas that relate to this. Our first concept is taking the Torah out itself. So a few basic questions. We're going to look at 6 questions in this section. Number 1 is, which way is the Torah carried out from the Aron to the bima? So just the bima is a stand. This is the sort of a platform in the middle of the shul. How is it carried there? So the Kitzur points out it should be taken to the right side, which is the north side of the shul if it's an east-facing shul. Which way is it returned? It's returned on the opposite side, which is the south if it's east-facing shul, which is really the right, turning right if one's facing the front as opposed to right facing the back. Okay, so it's different sides of the shul that the Torah is carried on to get out and to get back in. Question number 3, how should it be carried? So the Kitzur points out that it should be carried at least with the right arm or right hand of the shliach tzibur, of the person who's leading the davening. So it's best to have 2 hands. But if a person is going to be carrying it and holding a siddur and the Torah is not weighty enough, not a problem to have only in one hand, it has to be in the right hand. What should the congregation do? What should the people around us do? So those who are immediately around it should escort it to the bima. It's interesting that everybody's the idea of everybody kissing it and putting their hands out to kiss their hands or then kiss the Torah first. That isn't really brought down in the early halacha, but escorting it is. So if a man is standing right there as the Torah passes him, the responsibility is to walk it to the bima, to escort, which is an expression of honor and veneration. 5th question: what if there is no Sefer Torah available in a particular shul? In that case, one person should read out loud for everybody else, and it should be done out of a chumash. This is not because one fulfills obligation from a chumash, but rather so that we should not forget the concept of Krias Torah in those circumstances. Thank God we live at a time where this is less of a concern, but there were many stages in Jewish history where this became an issue depending on where the Jews were and the difficulties they were facing. 6th and last question in this concept: what if we are going somewhere and there's just not a Torah to be there? Can we bring a Torah with one? So the Kitzur brings 2 opinions. The first is that one is never allowed to bring a Torah to people for convenience. People come to the Torah, and the Torah does not come to people. The only exclusion he gives, the only exception to this case would be if it was a Talmid Chacham who is sick, a sage who is sick, and then you make a special aron, a special container or closet for it, then it would be allowed. But other than failing that, it would not be allowed. There is a more liberal opinion, which is that it could be either or, meaning if it's a Talmid Chacham, an important person, or a person who is sick, then one is able to do it. Of course, if one has a special iron a special place to place it, not just taking it in a talis as well. Obviously we do this as well when it comes to a base ovel. So there's a base ovel. We today have the practice to take it to the base ovel. Many were makpid not to take it to a base ovel unless there are 3 Krias HaTorahs, which is why some people would do a Krias HaTorah at the Mincha on Shabbos to give a third, so it'd be Monday, Thursday, and Shabbos afternoon. Today we are less makpid on this, it seems. Another exception might be is if there's a person who doesn't have a Sefer Torah and it's Shabbos Zachor or Para, which are Krias HaTorah, which are D'Oraisa from a biblical standpoint, then one might be able to move it. But the notion of just, I go somewhere, I'm going on vacation, I'm doing a family retreat, so I'll just get a Torah from a shul and put it in the back of the car in a trunk and go, that seems, even according to the lenient opinion, is not an appropriate course of action. The Torah doesn't dance around us, we dance around the Torah. And so therefore, in those circumstances, if one makes a decision to go to a place where there's no Torah. So one misses out that opportunity. But it's not just that it comes with us. There has to be a significant need, a base ovel, sick person, a Talmid Chacham who's homebound. So those are reasons that have value. And we're moving to the second concept, and that is the second concept is getting an aliyah. So this is just a background, just basic terminology over here for the moment. Aliyah means is a person who's honored by being called up to hear a subsection of the Torah being read. There are 7 aliyahs on Shabbos, there are 5 aliyahs on Yom Tov, 6 on Yom Kippur. On a regular weekday, there are 3 aliyahs. On a Rosh Chodesh, there's 4 aliyahs. So there's different amounts of aliyahs. So an aliyah is a subsection of the Torah which is being read. The person who is getting that is called the oleh, the person who goes up. And the reason why it's the language of aliyah, of going up, is because literally a person would go up because they would go up to the place where the bima was. The bima is a elevated platform, which is where the Torah is read. So if you look in any shul, the bima is an elevated platform. Unfortunately, if you're once davening in a basement or a neighbor's house or a pool house or wherever else it may be, or a shtibel, then that isn't the case. That's because if it's not a shul, it doesn't have all the traditional ways that shuls should be. So that's a loss. But really, technically speaking, a person in aliyah is going up, and of course, it's going up spiritually, but even physically, it's expressed as such as well. This in terminology, the Baal Koreh is the person who is actually laning the Torah. It used to be the person who was the oleh, would also be the Baal Koreh. Today we've bifurcated the roles. The Baal Koreh is a separate person usually. And then there's the Gabai, who's the person who's arranging and facilitating, making sure that this person knows that they're getting aliyah, and it calls them up as well. So now, a few basic questions over here that we're going to deal with in our section. We're going to deal with 14 questions about this. Number 2 is, what do I need to be wearing to get an aliyah? So the Kitzur points out that a person needs to have a talis. And so that's an important point. I think we'll need to add, I don't think the Kitzur was thinking about this, but I'm just going to add in that shorts, flip-flops, and double open buttons on the shirt. That's also, I don't think he could imagine such a situation. So I'm just going to add it in over here. So those are not appropriate. If you're not going to go and speak to, a senator, that's perhaps the closest in America that people can get in such a way, one would certainly not go dressed in such a fashion. One should certainly not go up to the Torah in such a fashion too as well. How do I go up to get to the bima to get my aliyah? So one goes up the fastest route and goes down the slowest route. If they're both equal, then one will go up on the right side and come down on the left side if one's facing the bima. So that's generally the protocol as well. But again, if it's faster on the left side, then one goes up that way so as not to be matriach the community. If a person knows they're getting aliyah, they should come up ahead of time so that it makes things faster, so people aren't just waiting for them to be running across the sanctuary. Question number 3, how long do I stay up on the bima? So one obviously has to stay up for the brachos at the beginning and the end of one's aliyah, but then one stays another aliyah, and this is an expression of not wanting to run away as well. What should I do when I am? What do I do when I'm up there? So here's just a basic framework of what's done. When a person gets an aliyah, they proceed quickly to the to where the Torah is being read on the bima. Then they stand on the right hand side of the Baal Koreh. So one's facing the Torah. One opens the scroll to the place the aliyah begins, and we have the minhag to take the talis and the strings of the talis and kiss the place where the aliyah begins. In Chabad and some Chasidus, they have the minhag to kiss the beginning and the ending of the aliyah as well with its tzitzis. Then the person who gets the aliyah, the oleh, holds both the atzei chaim. The eitz chaim are the wooden staves, which are the 2 parts of the scroll are rolled around. So holding them, close one's eyes, though some people look to the left, like the Mishnah Berurah says, and say, Baruch Hashem Avorach, blessed be Hashem's blessed name. And then the community responds, Baruch Hashem V'Rach Le'olam Va'ed, and he responds after they have finished. He responds that as well because he called out to them to say that. Then he says the Birkas HaTorah, which is Hashem Bach Rabbanim Mikol Amim V'Nasalonis Torah. So Hashem chose us from the nations and gave us His Torah. And then he says the Brach on the Torah. Then the Baal Koreh will read the entire Aliyah. While the Aliyah is going on, the Oleh only holds the right hand Atzei Chaim. The Baal Koreh holds the left hand Eitz Chaim. Obviously for Ashkenaz Torah, which is on those two rollers. When it comes to Eidut Mizrach Torah, which is standing up flat on the bima, obviously one doesn't have to hold it in the same way. During the Shiva, during the Aliyah, one reads along in a low whisper, but so low that one cannot even hear it to one's own ears, so as not to interrupt other people hearing. And when the Aliyah is finished, the Oleh takes both Atzei Chaim back, rolls the Torah close, and then the second Birkas Torah, which is Hashem Nasalanu, Hashem gave us the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu planted eternal life in our midst. Question number 5. If I need to adjust the parchment, how do I do that? So let's say a person is trying to roll the Torah closed and it's not really fitting, or one needs to do Hagbah or Glila. How does one touch the parchment? One is not allowed to touch the parchment directly. So if one is forced to, let's say one is rolling up the Torah to close it and it's falling down, what one needs to do is take a talus or a tissue and hold the parchment through that. One is not allowed to touch it with one's bare hands. Some people have so much awe and respect that they will not even hold the Atzei Chaim, the wood, with their bare hands, and they'll hold the wood with a talus. That's the degree of deference that is invested in this as well. What position do I need to be to get an Aliyah? So the Kitzur points out that both the Baal Koreh and the Oleh, so the person reading and the person getting the Aliyah, need to be standing, and even leaning is not acceptable. What about a sick person? So if a sick person is there, then and they need to have support, they are allowed to lean in order to be able to get the Aliyah as well. Why is this the case? So reading the Torah is recreating the receiving of the Torah at Sinai. This means to say, it is a recreation of the Matan Torah experience, which is done with fear, awe, and respect, and should be treated as such as well. Question number 9. Does that mean that everyone has to stand the whole time? So the Kitzur points out for Baruch Hu, and the response, Baruch Hashem, that everybody needs to be standing. So if a person's sitting for the Krias HaTorah, everybody in the community needs to stand up for Baruch Hu. The rest of the Aliyah, the rest of the Bracha and the actual Aliyah itself are not an obligation to stand for, but those who are careful about mitzvahs should opt in to do this. Of course, if one's opting in and trying it out, one should do a bli neder, one should do it without making it into a commitment that's going to be forever, because one may not be able to renege on that so easily. But between the aliyahs, then nobody's required to stand. That's totally fine to sit down. Question number 10, the second concept. What can people say or do during the aliyah? Is it forbidden for a person to speak during the Krias HaTorah or even to say Divrei Torah? One's not allowed to say anything while the Torah is being read. This is our mandate. This is our DNA. This is the Ratzon Hashem. This is the will of God. You cannot interrupt while this is happening. Question number 11. What about between the aliyahs? So Divrei Torah can be exchanged, as is pointed out by some, that you can exchange Divrei Torah, but not mundane talk between the aliyahs. Number 12. Can I leave during the Krias HaTorah? The answer is yes, but not while it's being read, and not if there's only a minyan with you. And question number 13, what if the Baal Koreh is called for the Aliyah? What does he do then? So in that case, he says the bracha holding both the Atzei Chaim, both the rollers. However, when he actually reads, the person who got the previous Aliyah, or one of the Gabaim, will take the right-hand one so that he is able to be there. Why is that the case? So the reason is because, like we're recreating the experience of Matan Torah, of giving of the Torah, there are different roles that need to be there. The Gabai is the facilitator, so that's Lahavdil, that's the giver of the Torah, who facilitates the service. The Gabai is seen as the highest in this respect. The Baal Koreh is like Moshe Rabbeinu, who would be presenting the Torah, and the Oleh, the person who is receiving the Torah, would be would represent the nation of Israel receiving the Torah being read. So that's the recreation process, which means we need to have at least 3 people on the bima. So it is important that even if the Baal Koreh is getting the Aliyah, there's somebody else holding the Torah at that point in time, holding the Eitz Chaim while Aliyah is going on. Finally, third and last concept that we're going to look at now is who gets called the Aliyah and when. Let's jump straight into this. For this, we're looking at 12 basic questions. Who gets the first Aliyah? This one's an easy one. Always a Kohen. What happens if there are sages, there are wise people in the shul who are much wiser than the ignorant Kohen in this particular instance? Do you go after a person who's learned, or after a person who has got the lineage but is not learned? So we know we still go after the Kohen, because giving the Kohen respect is independent of necessarily their state of learning. It is seen as an inherent privilege because of the service that they're going to render and had rendered in the Beis Hamikdash. Who is next? Second Aliyah goes to Levi. What happens if there is no Levi? So in that case, you say Ya'amod bimkom Levi, and the Kohen gets the second aliyah again. So you don't call up another person, you just go straight, the Kohen gets both of those aliyahs. What happens if there is no Kohen going back one back? Then one can call a Levi or a Yisrael. In this case, it's best to choose the greater sage, the more learned person, to get the second aliyah as well. If to get that first aliyah, but we have to say you have to say Ein kan Kohen. There's no Kohen here. Ya'amod so and so bimkom Kohen in the place of the Kohen. So everyone understands this is the reason as well. But if a Yisrael is called for the first aliyah, a Levi is no longer able to be called. If a Levi is called instead of the Kohen, then you can go then you can go with Yisrael afterwards. So if you don't have any Leviim, then you go straight to the Yisraelim as well. Number 7, what if the Kohen or Levi is in Krias Shema or in Birkas Krias Shema or just in the Amida? What should you do? Let's say that's the only Kohen. So the halacha is the Gabbai should not call him when he is in those parts of Tefillah. And you do not need to wait for him. So instead you say Ya'amod XYZ Ploni ben Almoni Bimkom Kohen. Not that there's Ein Kan Kohen, but let this person be called in the place of the Kohen, and that's because he is not available right now. What happens if, question number 8, we already called him up? So we called him up, then we realized, oh man, he's in the middle of the Amidah. What should we do in that case? So if he's in Krias Shema or the Brachos, he can take the Aliyah, say the Bracha before and after, but not read along, and then return to where he was in the davening. But if he's in the Amidah, if he's in the Shmona Esrei, he cannot take that Aliyah, and then he would have to just motion. They would go on and call somebody else up instead. Once he enters into the Elokain and Tzara, the end of the Amidah, then he can take it. What about if he's in the Pesukah Zimra? So if he's the only Kohen, then the Gamay can call him up. Even L'chadchila, even a priori, he can call him up, but he should not read quietly along with the Baal Koreh like he usually would. Question number 10. What if we called up the Kohen and or Levi and we miscalculated? They actually aren't in Shul. We always know this Kohen's in Shul. And we call him out and it happens to be he went to a different place this morning. There was a Shiva home and he decided to go there. You look around, he isn't there. What should you do in that case? So in this case, you have to refine a replacement and say, Ale ata. You don't call the replacement person by their name. You just say, you ascend. Meaning you take the aliyah in this place. Because you don't want to tarnish the lineage of a Kohen or a Levi by calling up somebody afterwards, and then the crowd won't understand what happened, and they'll say, oh, maybe he lost his privileges to be a Kohen, maybe something terrible happened. This is not true if he was called for Achron, meaning to say if, let's say the Kohen was called for the 8th aliyah on a Shabbos, because you can add in extra aliyahs, and those extra aliyahs, the last one can be given to a Kohen or a Levi. If that Kohen happened not to be in Shul, then you can actually call up another person by their name, because it's not considered a tarnishing to their lineage, because that doesn't have to be a Kohen aliyah. Question number 11. What if we called the Yisrael and he was absent? So then you just call somebody else. There's no concern, and by name, there's no concern of a pagam in lineage, a deficiency in lineage. That's not the same concern as with a Kohen, because if a Kohen is called up and then it doesn't come, and then somebody else replaces him by name, it looks bad, it looks as if maybe he's disqualified. But Yisrael is not disqualified. People say, oh, he isn't here. Okay, he's usually here, he's not here. That's the way things are. Finally, 12th and last question for today. What if we thought there was no Kohen and we called Yisrael instead? Oh man. So now the Gabbais call up Yisrael, then the Kohen motions and comes running across. I'm here. So it depends. If the Yisrael, the fellow is called, did not yet begin the Birkas HaTorah, even if he said Baruch Hu already, but he didn't say the Birkas HaTorah yet, the Kohen comes up, says Baruch Hu, gets the Aliyah, the Yisrael stands next to him and gets called up on his Aliyah, the next Aliyah. But if the Yisrael already began the Birkas HaTorah, the Kohen does not get an Aliyah, and that would be it. It's missed. The same protocol will be if the Kohen was called up twice, thinking there was no Levi, or if Yisrael was called up in the place of the Levi, thinking there was no Levi, and then Levi comes running. So it depends how far they got as well. As you can see, there's some complexity when it comes to these things. These are all the types of things that need resolution right away, because there's no time to figure this out, which is why it's good to know the halachas. This is the first part of the laws of Krias HaTorah. Have a wonderful and meaningful